This is a real article from CNN. I'm not kidding. This is from yesterday. It says COVID-19 has become the 8th most common cause of death among children in the United States, according to a new study. Wow. Number 7's pizza. What's the first 7? Heart attacks from gas stoves and climate change?
The numbers.
The 8th. Could you imagine at any other time? First of all, kids don't die, right? So the 8th leading, I like how they put leading cause of death. That, by the way,
I like how it was leading right in the, that's leading
That's
and right in the title.
So here, let's remind people that children are at almost zero risk from COVID. Here's Bill Gates to tell you.
It wasn't until early February when I was in a meeting that experts at the foundation said, there's no way, there's been too much travel without diagnosis for us to contain this. Then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. We didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than that.
So that's Mr. I invested $55 million into that COVID-19 vaccine, made $500 million, and now he's telling you the truth about the vaccine. Isn't that wild?
Now, this isn't...
And he's telling you the truth about COVID, I mean. He's telling you the truth about COVID, that it's a virus that affects mostly the elderly.
Yeah, now I'm not, did you know I'm not a doctor? Okay.
Right, you're not a
It's just a rough estimate.
Right.
That more children have seen Bill Gates naked on Epstein Island than have died of COVID.
I think that's, you know what? I'm not going to...
my estimate.
I'm not going to challenge the veracity of that statement. So just so you remember, this during Delta, which was a much more deadly strain of COVID, for children without a serious medical condition, the danger of severe COVID is so low as to be difficult to quantify. The risk of long COVID among children, a source of fear among many parents, also very low. According to the CDC, among children, the mortality risk from COVID-19 actually lower than from the flu. So when you see a headline like this, you know what they're doing. They're sponsored by Big Pharma. They want to scare the crap out of you so they can increase their profits. And that's all this is. That's all this is. That's all this is.
Well, like the 8th, I guess the 8th thing makes it like a tough one to spin to, because did it drop from number 1 to 8th, or has it risen to the 8th?
Well, here's what happened. This is from the article. Everyone knows that COVID is the most severe in elderly and immunocompromised, and that it's less severe in children. But first of all, not everybody knows that, asshole. That's bullshit. That's that thing. Well, everybody knew it didn't stop transmission.
I mean, people who just read the headline you just wrote who don't know it from the misleading headline that you're now contradicting.
And 80% of the people we know only read the headline. So if you read the headline, you wouldn't know any of that. You would think the exact opposite. So now this guy that they're quoting says everyone knows that COVID is the most severe in the elderly and immunocompromised and that it's less severe in children. But that does not mean it's benign disease in children.
What? I've always said it's a benign disease in children. And he's saying it's not.
And he's saying it's not.
Everyone I know says it's a benign.
Kurt, just because the numbers are so much lower in children, almost non-existent, that doesn't mean they're not impactful. What is going on? You see what they're doing? This is disgusting. This is the stuff. And then they say Joe Rogan is the guy who's misleading people. There's someone else who's a bigger propagandist liar than CNN and their pharma-funded media. There isn't. There's more. Go ahead. But I still think Joe Scarborough should take more boosters. So just because the numbers, so here we go. But it's rare for children to die for any reason. The researchers wrote, so the burden of the COVID-19 is best understood in the context of other pediatric deaths.
What does that mean?
No, it's not. No, that's not best understood.
Oh, they mean 8th on a list?
So now they're going to show you all the other causes of pediatric death, but there's a big lie coming up that makes this all bullshit, and I'll show you in a second.
It's already kind of twisty. from start to finish, so start to the middle.
So a CDC survey of blood samples suggests that more than 90% of children have already had COVID-19 at least once. So that would mean they have natural immunity. There is uncertainty about exactly how much risk the virus will continue to pose. There's not that much uncertainty. No, there isn't. That's not true. There is uncertainty about You mean exactly? Yeah, exactly. But we already know that it poses a risk so low to children, it's hard to quantify. But we can't say, you see the words they're using, Kurt, to make it so
But I like the second part.
There is uncertainty about exactly how much risk the virus will continue to pose, O'Leary said. But the potential benefits of vaccination clearly outweigh any potential risks, said the psychopath talking to the CNN guy. Vaccination clearly is our best option right now. And the benefits clearly outweigh the risks, he said. Better safe than sorry. So vaccinate your child, and then you're safe. Okay, just so you know what's wrong with this whole thing. Do you know what they consider a child?
No, what?
Someone who's 19 years old. They're counting someone who's 19 years old as a child.
Wait,
so they can pretend that now that COVID is a risk to children, the 8th leading cause. They had to bring in 19-year-olds.
Wait a minute. What is this going to do to the barely legal porn industry?
And then they list all the leading causes of death. Certain conditions originating in the perinatal period. So that's before birth. Is that what that mean? What does perinatal mean? Let's look it up. Hey Siri, what does perinatal mean? It means before? Oh, okay. Yeah, before birth, postnatal, or postpartum, meaning after birth. So there you go. So right around, so that's most of it. Then the number 2 is accidents. Unintentional injuries. Then the next is, by the way, all accidents, not car accidents, not swimming, not biking, they're all, not skateboarding, they're all just combined. All accidents. Then congenital malformities, deformations, chromosomal abnormalities, assaults, homicides.
So they have a better chance of being murdered than they do.
They have a much better chance of being murdered than they do of dying from COVID. Then there's intentional suicide, much higher than death by COVID.
They're more likely to take their own lives. Oh, my 19-year-old child.
So malignant neoplasms, whatever that is. Then diseases of the heart for children. You know, children always have that heart disease. Yeah. Then COVID. So COVID has bumped out influenza. By the way,
19-year-olds?
So they had to add 19-year-olds in.
As soon as I see 19, that's already like, what is going on?
So flu is higher than COVID. Where did that figure come from? You had to get that age group up to 19 so you could say COVID kills more kids than the flu. So if you just had kids like 12 and under or 5 and under or what would normally be considered a child.
I mean, legally, they're not a child.
19, you're not a child.
18, you couldn't do 18. You got greedy and went 19.
They had to go 19 to get that number. If they would have stopped at 18, they probably wouldn't have gotten that number. It would have been 9th. And then it would still be less deadly than the flu. Because it is for children. A 19-year-old is not a child. And that's why CNN is lying. That's not a misinterpretation. That's a lie when you pretend that 19-year-old people are children.
That's an adult.
That's a full-blown adult.
So we have child soldiers right now in Syria?
We have child soldiers in Sierra Leone. I like this. This guy caught it. He says, hard to calculate since suicides are literally counted as COVID deaths. Right, because not getting the vax is basically suicide.
It's that effective. And
don't forget the 12-year-old boy whose suicide was coded as COVID with an contributing cause of intentional self-harm by handgun discharge. Yep,
He probably sneezed.
Yep, that's what's. So they're saying this guy who killed himself. A contributing cause was the handgun to the head. The main cause was the COVID. That's what they're saying.
So much misery from the COVID.
That's tragic. A child felt so ashamed of not being vaccinated that he committed suicide. Isn't that something? That's painful. So according to the study, your child is 3.5 times more likely to die from suicide than they are from COVID?
Well, suicide will be a contributing cause of the death.
Quick! Pfizer, we need a suicide mRNA injection for children. Quick! Did you know that Romeo and Juliet actually died of COVID? True story. Hey, why are you counting suicides, accidents, drug overdoses, cancer, premature births as COVID deaths? This is real. This is what they really do when you get your money from Pfizer. This is real. By the way, the vaccine is safe and effective, Kurt. You know that. It's what I know.
Yeah.
And I know that it'll slow this transmission and contraction of the virus, and it'll keep you from getting seriously ill, hospitalized, or dead. It is fantastic. My heart swells 3 times its size with pride, knowing I'm taking such a good product.
You were what I would call a vaccine Grinch, but now your heart has grown 3 sizes.
So I just realized who really killed JFK. It was COVID. You don't think that? I think so.
Why are they holding it back like the COVID information?
Right. Wow, CNN really does enjoy misleading the world. This is really something else. You know what's sad? This is a great point. Everything on that list, besides number 2, which was, I think, accidents, wouldn't be there if we didn't have a bunch of corrupt pharmaceutical companies in bed with the corrupt government who poisons us through vaccines and food and any other way they can think of. Well, they certainly don't poison us through vaccines. Vaccines are health makers.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe if you guys watch more CNN, they wouldn't have to take these payouts from Big Pharma. What are you supposed to do?
Can you believe CNN misleading their last 16 viewers like that? That is something. Notice how they group all accidents into a single line item in order to make COVID seem more dangerous than it actually is.
That's a good. I didn't even think of that.
Yes.
How many of them are trampolines? How many of them are fire? Or
how about a skateboard? How about a scooter? As justice warriors for Johnny Depp know, I like how this guy mixes these two things. As justice warriors for Johnny Depp know, network news can lie. They lie about everything. COVID is 8th on the list, and above it are non-medical causes of death. This is reality distortion at its most devious. Please write about that.
That Johnny Depp thing, I'll tell you what, a bunch of journalist people I didn't follow it, but they should have, because that was where a bunch of people that don't follow any of this noticed an issue, was with that.
So know what? So then there's this guy. So then you remember this guy, Nathan J. Robinson? I think he somehow got money and he started that Current Affairs magazine. And he's been coming at me ever since. And he's a real, I don't know what you call a dweeb or a nerdy guy. Like I
don't know what in the hell happened.
Like he's like a dandy too. Like he likes to dress like he's very, I don't want to.
Like a kind of a time traveler look.
Yeah. Anyway. So when I tweeted about it, I said, this article is mental. He goes, "You're out of your mind, man," talking to me. Who are these psychopaths? So here's what I said. I tweeted out the article and I said, they won't stop. These people are psychopaths. Children are at less of a risk from COVID than they are from the flu. European countries won't even offer the vax to healthy people under 50, but these criminals want to scare you to inject your children for their profit. Depraved. So then this guy comes along. By the way, his biggest claim to fame was that he's supposed to be a socialist, ultra lefty about the workers.
Well, you should be a socialist too.
And when when the workers in his office at the magazine wanted to unionize, he fired them all. And then he had to go underground for 9 months because he so humiliated himself. And then he was writing a book about how the right wing is wrong. So he's trying to get people on the left to love him again because he's such an asshole. Union buster.
Just do what Cenk did and say you're not a union guy, man.
Just anyway, so he got caught. And so now he comes onto my thread and he says, "You're out of your mind, man. Who are these psychopaths?" The psychopaths are the people who wrote that article.
He didn't read it.
He didn't read it.
He absolutely didn't read the article.
Well, maybe he did.
You think he did?
He says CNN for reporting a study on COVID deaths in kids. Yes. This is totally reasonable news story, and your bizarrely extreme reaction to it should lead to some self-reflection.
Ooh, 7 whole likes on that one.
He got ratioed all day long.
Just read the thing, Nathan.
Somebody wrote, "Dang, I hope your new book is better researched than your tweets. Otherwise, it probably shouldn't exist."
Everybody probably said what I just said.
So here he is getting ratioed, and here's this a rando just ratioed his ass. So here's another one. A plantation Riddler capping for a CNN, capping for Pfizer. Or isn't it capping?
No, caping.
Caping?
I think it means like being a superhero.
It's like, no, it's standing. Like you're standing, you're capping.
Caping. It's capping?
It's caping?
I don't know.
What do you think, Misha? You don't know? Take a guess. So you don't know? So people
I think it's caping, and I think it comes from Watchmen. Because that's not how you say capping.
I'm voting capping.
That's 2 P's capping.
Oh, capping would be 2 P's.
It's caping, like Superman coming.
But anyway, the funny part is at the bottom, a human centipede of controlled opposition, because that's what Nathan J. Robinson is.
I think he's a caboose trying to work his way up to the middle centipede.
But that's what there's something going on with that guy, and he's doing partisan politics as hard as he can because he got exposed for being a phony and probably controlled opposition because he fired everybody as soon as they wanted to unionize at his company.
Well, here's what I bet. I bet you his little operation probably didn't need a union, but he's not a nuanced guy that actually reads the things and could tell you the difference of why it shouldn't be reasonably. He's just like goes along. So once you put yourself like that, you're trapped. Now you got to go along with what you just said. Everything's good all the time if I'm on the side of it.
What I said is I get you don't know anything about COVID except what you've been told by pharma-funded media like CNN, while I have spent the last 18 months debunking them. You are a run-of-the-mill fearmonger and repeater of propaganda for Big Pharma. Maybe you should learn a little. And then I gave him that little stat to talk about how it's not a threat to children.
I wanted to ask him if he read it so bad. Like, I would be like, this is your chance, dude. Just read it over.
Why are there still so many Americans frightened by the thought of COVID? Because CNN wants you to stay scared. So why does CNN want you to stay scared? Because they're sponsored by Pfizer and money is their bottom line, not your mental health suckers. Perfect. If you read the data they cherry picked here, you'd be laughing all night. P.S. Pretty much the same amount as before COVID when it was influenza being the 8th leading cause. And by children, they mean 19-year-olds.
Yeah, he didn't. I bet you missed that part.
This is from the article. If we looked at all those other leading causes of death, whether you're talking about motor vehicle accidents or childhood cancer, and we said, gosh, if we had some simple, safe thing we could do just to get rid of one of those, wouldn't we just jump at it?
No.
He's talking about a experimental medical treatment as a safe thing with no long-term studies, injecting it into children who are at almost zero risk from the thing they're vaccinating them from.
By the way, of course we wouldn't jump at it. Remember when Ralph Nader got seatbelts in cars? How much they didn't jump at that and instead tried to ruin his life for a simple, safe thing. Like, there is no corporation that would do that.
Who said that? This guy O'Leary. He's a professor of pediatric infectious disease at the University of Colorado School of Medicine and Children's Hospital in Colorado. And if that guy was my kid's doctor, I would get another doctor because that guy's a mental case. That guy is reckless. It's in the extreme. That guy is not good. And that's coming. A potted comedian can tell that.
It sounds like he reads research about as good as Nathan J. Robinson.
Yeah, that's right. So this guy says, since I have to check on this number. Since October 1st, the CDC has pediatric COVID deaths at 42 and pediatric flu deaths at 76.
For the whole country?
Yeah, so that's what this guy's saying.
That's unbelievable, unbelievably low.
I'm going to guess. Look
gotta be for the country.
look up, Google that. How many deaths, children's pediatric deaths? Let's look that up. Pediatric deaths in children from COVID and the flu since October 1st. Let's look that up.
Since October 1st.
Since October
not
1st.
for like the year or something.
No, just since
It's
October.
probably the whole country.
October, November, so 3 months basically, or 4 maybe.
So both things are very rare, it looks like.
Very rare. Kids don't die. And there are, so now here's the people who believe it. So you don't think that people read that story and believe it? I'm going to show you a bunch of people who do.
Didn't read the story.
So this guy says, and there are Retrumplican lawmakers that want to stop this vaccine. How sick is that? Can you?
That's so bad that I'm like, are you like a?
Do you think someone from Pfizer, someone paid? That's like a
because
Pfizer.
It's such a cheesy. I mean, it's hard to tell.
DK 74209. Maybe that sounds suspect. How about bad code shoot? It's Anna R. She says COVID is a leading cause of death. Do you see how they leading?
Is a leading. So she wrote a leading. That's very
leading. You mean it's eighth behind pizza?
She said leading.
Leading cause of death, and the replies are still full of absolute effing walnuts blaming vaccines. The U.S. and the U.K. tied for the stupidest countries. You know, the U.K.'s stopped. It's not going to make the vaccine available to healthy people under 50 anymore. You know that, right?
Yeah, their hair is stupider. I don't know if you know what's going on over there now, but.
And people still pretend this pandemic is over, says Thick and Tired.
She's talking about your heart?
All right, so that's real article from CNN.
I'm tired.
CNN. I want to give you the headline again.
By the way, it is over. It's now an endemic, is it not?
It's you know how it becomes an endemic, Kurt? People. Local officials decide when they just feel like it. There's no data.
Haven't they?
They just, I think a lot of them have. Joe Biden already did. He said COVID was over. But now they're going to, in coming up like in March, they're going to, or maybe May, they're going to stop giving the vaccines.
Get them in now.
They're going to stop. Let me take that back. They're going to stop doing something in May. Could you find out what that is? When is that
the story from Monday?
By the way, did you find out how many? Hey Siri, how many children died from COVID since October 1st in America?
I found one article that was dated 12/22, and it reported that there were. It estimated that since October 1st, 2022, that there was 14 pediatric deaths. That's the only specific that I've been able to find.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what we said. So you found 14? Here was this. What did this guy say?
14 pediatric deaths.
Well, this guy has them higher.
Yeah, but I only got, So I don't know where great if he had a link to that info.
Yeah, he should have gave a link. All right, we cannot verify the veracity of those numbers. So
it looks like then he would have gotten that info from the CDC.
Yeah, Google the CDC.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
So I just got this texted to me. It looks like a Facebook post. It says, I am angry. I'm so angry. If you heard the state of Michigan report on COVID this morning, you may have heard a 2-month-old baby died of COVID. I need everyone to know that Hudson did not die of COVID. According to the autopsy, which has been told to me via phone but not yet by mail, Hudson suffered a bowel perforation and an infection because of it. This is directly related to his gastrocysts. I am so angry. I'm angry at the government for skewing numbers and making my baby a statistic to try to benefit their agenda while my family is suffering. Edited to add, please don't private message us your opinions because, quite frankly, I don't care what your opinions are about this. My family's trying to grieve and I don't need my inbox being flooded by people I don't know. So I just want to...
I'm having problems verifying that info.
Okay, but the vaccine is safe and effective and will slow the spread and the transmission and contraction, and it'll keep you from being seriously ill or hospitalized or dead. It's fantastic, the vaccine.
Luckily, everything worked out for the best because there was a lot of, mistakes were made on the way, but it worked out.
It all worked out for sure. Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, Tempe, Arizona, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville, Northampton, Massachusetts, and a lot more places. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets and become a premium member while you're there. You get access to all of our stuff. See you then.